Marita75 back with another Playroom Reactions, and this time we are going to be celebrating the release of the NES Classic Mini, which is sold out super fast. There's no telling when they're going to get when more of them is going to be in stores because it's loaded with 30 greatest NES games. But let's rewind back to the time where the NES made its debut. Back in 1985, when that baby saved the video game industry from the pits of the 1983 video game crash. Remember that? Even if you're too young to remember, make sure you find that out through Google. Anyway, let's get to it with WatchMojo's top 5 facts. Now you're playing with power. Knowledgeable power. Game on!
Want to play Nintendo?
Time to plug in the second controller so our gullible younger siblings can feel like they're actually playing with us. Welcome to WatchMojo's Top 5 Facts, the series where we dust off our issues of Nintendo power to discuss a fascinating topic. And this time, we're playing with power. Or facting with power. We're talking about the NES. Number 5. Nintendo bought out their Rule 34 material.
Oh my god, you're like Yoshi down there.
For those of you not up to date on internet slang, Rule 34 is the theory that if it exists, there is porn of it. No exceptions. Not even for Nintendo, despite its family-friendly image. Back in the 60s, Nintendo actually had a love hotel where you could rent rooms by the hour and play video games. Sure, Nintendo, that's definitely all that happened. This idea ultimately failed, but that didn't mean the company was done dealing with things between the sheets. Enter bootlegs like Super Mario. And no, that's not just me mispronouncing his name, which rewarded players with something more than a cake.
Ooh,
then there's adult parodies
naughty.
like the Super Hornio Brothers series, which Nintendo actually purchased from famed porn actor Ron Jeremy to make sure it never saw the light of day. Unfortunately for them, we have the internet. Number 4. There was going to be a sewing machine add-on. If you thought Nintendo's balance board was an odd peripheral, then you clearly didn't live in the age of the Power Glove.
I love the Power Glove.
Remember the wizard?
It's so bad.
Nintendo is the reigning champion of odd accessories for their consoles, but today's accessories are nothing compared to the NES days. Back then, Nintendo would try anything, and we mean anything, like this sewing peripheral. That's right, once upon a time, Nintendo had plans to make a sewing peripheral that interacted with the NES to sew different Nintendo-themed patterns. Sporting the catchphrase, "Now you're knitting with power," and there was even a game released in Japan where you could design your own sweaters with Mario designs.
Only in Japan.
Is a little bit bummed out that this didn't happen. Until 2001, when the Singer Isaac's sewing machine came along.
Turn on the power to the Game Boy.
Only in Japan.
Now turn on the power to the sewing machine.
Number 3, press the square buttons.
It's hip to be square.
That song is so lame.
So lame that it's cool.
No, we're not talking about the PlayStation controller. This one is about the NES's Japanese counterpart, the Famicom. Released 2 years prior to our gray little box, this white and red console was the beginning of what would be a revolution in gaming with its square buttons and... wait, square buttons? Apparently, the first wave of Famicoms had square buttons on their controllers instead of the round ones we've come to know. Why the switch? Well, it's because those square buttons would stick or pop off. Fortunately, this was fixed in plenty of time for our NES launch. Unfortunately, not everyone got the memo that the US controllers didn't have built-in microphones like the Japanese ones.
Ah!
Number 2, the NES had a good, long life. Nintendo never says die. Or is that Goonies?
Goonies never say die!
Either way, Nintendo has a bit of a reputation for stretching the lifespans of their consoles. The NES's final game, Wario's Woods, was released on December 10th, 1994, 1 week after the launch of the Sony PlayStation, and not too long before the release of the Nintendo 64. Even if Nintendo stopped releasing games, their power line was still up and running until, get this, 2010. But the most impressive fact of all, people are still making NES games. Unofficially, of course. And many of these are good, well-developed titles like 2010's Battle Kid and the Fortress of Peril. As of writing this, the last NES release that we could find was 2015's 8-Bit Christmas. Number 1. It caused the resurrection of video gaming. That may sound like an over-exaggeration, until you realize how big of an impact the Atari crash had on the gaming industry. There's a reason why the NES looks more like a VCR than a gaming console. Retailers and corporate buyers were so skeptical about the gaming industry that Nintendo advertised it as anything but a gaming device. After an extremely limited launch, we're talking a few stores in New York and LA, word started to spread, and the NES gained momentum. But Nintendo, still being overly cautious, implemented a strict licensing policy to try and control all NES games, not just their own. This, understandably, led to a lot of pissed-off third-party developers. Nintendo did eventually loosen their iron grip, but you gotta admit, after releases like this, you can kinda see where they were coming from. Well, it's game over for now, Mojoholics.
What the hell are you doing? I had the magic key. I got the cross. I was closing the barbarian.
Did these NES facts make you want to blow dust out of one of those cartridges? For more powered-up top 10s and bit-tastic top 5s, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
Doesn't take much intelligence to play that game, does it?
You should know.
Yeah. And for one thing, here's a little insider information that will ruin your NES childhood. But in a non-sexual way, those NES cartridges that we know of, that was our first blowjobs. You know, blowing the dust. Because, you know how, it was interfering with the games and stuff? Anyway. Enjoy your NES nostalgia, and make sure if they have it in store, pick up the NES Classic Mini. Until then, this is Margaret75. Link will be in the description below, and I will catch you on the flop side.